I am on the roof of my own fortress, with a pipe wrench still in my hand, when the last morning show, still broadcasting out of Las Vegas, runs old footage of me again. Me in a sun-faded cap, standing in front of a half-finished wall 3 years ago, while a smiling host calls me a desert lunatic who bought his own prison. The clip plays on the little service television mounted beside the hatch. Sound thin, picture breaking up, sunlight washing half the screen out. Under it, smoke is already lifting over the western flats where the interstate cuts past the truck stop and the gas station and the line of dry hills beyond. I shut the television off with my thumb and stand there for a second looking toward the road. Not because the host matters now, but because the road does. It is a little after 7 in the morning. The light is hard already. Heat is coming up off the gravel before the day has properly started. The solar field east of the wall is live, every row angled and clean. The greenhouses on the south side are bright and damp inside, plastic panels beaded from the night cooling. The well pumps are on. The cistern gauges in the control room are reading full enough to calm a normal person and not nearly full enough to calm me. 2 outer cameras are showing the access road empty. One is flickering because Nate still has not replaced the cable after last week's dust storm. 5 years ago, I am an estimator for a utility contractor outside Henderson. I spend my life measuring trench, conduit, pipe, labor hours, and fuel burn. Then a lottery ticket turns into a number with too many zeros on a screen in a convenience store, and my whole life gets dragged under hot television lights. 100 million sounds endless when people say it fast. It is not endless after taxes, engineers, steel, land, wells, batteries, concrete, heavy equipment, permits, lawsuits, fencing, medical stock, greenhouse kits, seed, water treatment gear, payroll, insurance, and every other thing a fortress actually needs. Every dollar I can hold on to goes into this place anyway. People laugh harder when I do not buy a mansion in Malibu or a yacht in Florida. They laugh hardest when I put 18-foot walls around 160 acres of desert and call it preparedness. Now the television crews are gone. The internet went in and out all night. State alerts are looping. The hospital footage from Phoenix and Vegas is bad enough that nobody on television is smiling anymore. At least not in any real way. Men in scrubs are trying to hold doors shut. Patrol cars are blocking freeway ramps. A helicopter shot from dawn shows a checkpoint with abandoned sedans scattered across both lanes and no officers visible anywhere. I head down the hatch ladder and cross the roof toward the stairwell. The roof is concrete with anti-slip grit rolled into the finish, wide enough for patrols and maintenance carts, ringed by waist-high ballistic parapet sections, broken by observation points. I built too much roof. I know it. I built too much of everything. Until now. Now even this place feels smaller every hour. Marta is in the control room when I come down. She is standing over the main board with a grease pencil in her hand, dark hair tied up, work shirt already damp across the shoulders. She ran half the construction for me after the second general contractor quit and called me impossible. She did not scare easy then, and she does not scare easy now. The county line is dead, she says without turning. Sheriff repeater gives static. State frequency is jammed with open mics and screaming. Anna called again. She's an hour out if traffic keeps moving. Ben? On the north wall. Luis is in the motor bay. Nate is on the inverter rack. Kelly wants the quarantine rooms unlocked and cleaned. I nod. Do it. Open all 6. Marta looks over then, not arguing, just measuring whether I mean it. I do. The quarantine wing sits between the outer receiving yard and the main residential block. 8 concrete rooms with drains, cameras, independent air handling, stainless sinks, cots, cabinets, and doors that lock from either side. I built it because every disease plan I ever read started with separation, and because I had enough money left at the time to stop pretending I was only planning for weather and civil unrest. For years, it has been a punchline. This morning, Kelly is stripping plastic off the mattresses and asking for bleach concentrate and body bags. I go out the control room door into the main corridor. The place still smells new in spots. Sealant, dust, cut lumber in the unfinished classroom, fertilizer drifting in from Greenhouse 3, diesel from the maintenance wing. I pass the pantry and see Denise already filling rolling carts with bottled water, crackers, canned beans, oat packets, instant coffee, and paper cups. She turns when I pass. How many? I keep walking another step before I answer because the true number changes every time I run it in my head. I don't know yet. She swears under her breath. Not at me, at the problem. The compound is built to sleep 240 if I stack people hard in bunks and convert the classrooms and workshop offices into dorms. It is built to feed less than that for any meaningful stretch, unless crops come in. Water recycling works the way it should, and nobody breaks anything serious. I have room, but room is not the same thing as capacity. Capacity is water pressure, toilet load, waste processing, insulin refrigeration, cooking fuel backup, spare filters, bedding, lock hardware, med stock, wound care, septic throughput, and whether the people inside decide to act like adults or fools. I step into the receiving yard, and the heat hits harder. The inner gate is still open. Beyond it sits the outer yard with the vehicle barrier line, the search canopy, the inspection lane, and the heavy front gate built into the east wall. Past that, a quarter-mile of graded road runs to the county blacktop through flat scrub and pale dirt. Empty right now. Too empty. Ben is above me on the catwalk with binoculars and a slung rifle. He is ex-private security, former Army, broad through the shoulders, gray around the beard, exact in movement. He did not laugh when I hired him 2 years ago. He said I was either serious or sick, and either version needed a man who could write a perimeter plan and keep inventory honest. You see the smoke? I ask. West and south, he says. Truck stop is burning. Maybe the station too. Got 6 cars in the valley moving north, no turnoff yet. I look up. How many people are on site? Counting us. 9. 9 people inside a place designed for hundreds. It sounded powerful in interviews when reporters asked how many residents the compound could take. They always wanted a clean number. I used to give one. 240 in emergency shelter configuration. I stopped giving it after the clips started showing up with laugh tracks and graphics of me in a king's crown standing in front of concrete. A clean number turns into a promise fast. My phone buzzes in my pocket. Anna. I answer on the first ring. Where are you? 30 miles out, she says. Her voice is flat in a way I know from childhood. Flat means she is holding herself together by narrowing everything down to the next 5 minutes. Road's open here, but I passed 3 wrecks and 1 guy walking in the median covered in blood. Eli keeps asking if he can call Dad. The line won't hold. Keep the windows up. Don't stop for anyone. If the gate's closed when you get here, stay on the horn and cameras will pick you up. You really built it, she says. All of it. I look over the yard. The concrete, steel, razor wire rolls still crated in the corner. The forklift, the line of utility carts, the water tote stacks, the outer canopy, the gate control kiosk with laminated intake forms nobody has ever used. Yeah, I say. I really did. The call drops. By 8, the first trouble comes in the form of a single county truck bouncing up the road too fast, white dust boiling behind it. Ben sees it before the camera picks it up clean. He calls down from the wall, and I hit the yard siren twice, our internal alert for vehicle arrival. Marta steps out of the admin door with a clipboard. Kelly comes through the infirmary door, tying her hair back and pulling gloves on. Luis rolls the portable barrier into place, so the truck has to stop under the canopy before it ever reaches the inner gate. The driver slams out before the engine is dead. Deputy Colin Reese. I know him by face only. He worked my permit dispute the first year when locals kept filing complaints about noise and groundwater. He is sweating through his tan uniform shirt, one sleeve dark with blood from elbow to wrist. "Gate!" he yells. "You need to close your goddamn gate right now." Ben keeps his rifle pointed down but visible on the catwalk, hands where I can see them. Colin lifts both hands. One is red to the cuff. It's my brother's blood. Not mine, I'm clean. Kelly is already moving, shirt off. Boots stay on. Slow. He obeys because he has run out of pride on the road. While Kelly checks him under the canopy, Colin keeps trying to talk around his own exhaustion. He was at a temporary highway checkpoint near the interstate. A van pushed through. One trooper fired. More vehicles rammed the barricades. Then one of the detainees in the back of an ambulance sat up after being declared dead and bit an EMT in the neck. Colin says it without drama because he has gone past shock and moved into raw reporting. He says another man stopped moving on the shoulder after taking a round in the stomach and got back to his feet 4 minutes later. He says the radio net turned into open panic. He says the sheriff is telling substations to secure family and hold position if they still can. Kelly wipes her gloves, checks his arms, neck, scalp, hands. No bites. One cut on the forearm. Old, shallow, not fresh. Colin nods. Barbed wire fence yesterday. I look at his truck bed. 2 duffels. A case of bottled water, patrol shotgun, 1 fuel can. Not much. You alone? He stares at the concrete for a second. Now I am. That answer sits in the heat between us, and nobody touches it. I let him in. It is the first real decision of the day, and it takes less than 10 seconds. That is how the rest of them go. 5 years of planning, spreadsheets, rehearsed criteria, intake trees, permission matrices, and then a sweating man under a canopy with dried blood up his sleeve and a stare that says the world outside has already cracked open. We move him to quarantine room 2 for observation and debrief. Kelly wants 12 hours. Ben wants 24. Colin wants a radio and a place to sit down. He gets a cot and 2 bottles of water. At 8:30, Anna arrives with Eli and 2 extra people I did not know were in her SUV. Her neighbor Marisol in the passenger seat, and Marisol's father folded in the back with a towel against his mouth because he has emphysema and the dust on the road has worked him over. I do not love surprises. I do not have time to fight one. Anna gets out and stands looking up at the walls for 1 second before she looks at me. She is smaller than me, sharper than me, and more stubborn than I ever learned to be. She worked school administration for years and never once told me I was right about this place. Now she walks in through the inner gate carrying 2 backpacks and a sleeping kid's duffel, hair full of road grit, and says, "Tell me where I put this stuff." Eli looks around with his mouth open. He is 13. He has spent years pretending the compound is embarrassing family folklore. He sees the armory door, the water tower, the greenhouse rows, the security cameras, the roof walk, and the concrete block dorms, and suddenly none of it is funny. More vehicles are already on the access road before Anna's engine cools. By 9:30, there are 11 at the gate. A plumbing supplier van, 2 pickups, a family in a minivan, a man on a touring motorcycle with soft bags hanging off the sides, and an old church shuttle carrying 8 people and a cooler strapped in place with extension cords. I do not need cameras to know why. The compound is easy to find if a person ever watched the clips. Drones filmed it. News helicopters filmed it. An investor podcast filmed me in front of the cistern farm while the host asked if I was planning for nuclear war or aliens. Everybody knows the road, the wall, the gate. My whole defense strategy loses value because mockery made me famous. Marta and I set intake rules on the fly. Weapons are declared at the outer line and stored on entry. Every person is checked head to toe. Every bag is opened. Every vehicle is searched. Every person goes to quarantine for 2 hours minimum if he or she had recent exposure to crowds, hospitals, roadside aid, or violence. Anyone with an obvious bite stays out, no debate. Anyone with a fever goes to isolation and only comes in if Kelly says yes. Skills matter. Supplies matter. Families are not automatic. Children are not automatic. Nobody gets a promise before inspection. The first woman I turn away is maybe 30, maybe younger, face burned pink from the sun, one little girl asleep against her shoulder. Her husband is standing behind her, holding a tire iron in one hand and the strap of a duffel in the other. They have 2 bottles of water, half a loaf of bread, and a sedan with a radiator leak and no gas reserve. "Please," she says. "We saw you on TV." I look at the girl because I do not want to look at the mother while I say it. "How long were you in traffic?" "Since before dawn." "Any contact?" The husband steps in then. "We don't have time for this." Open the gate. Ben shifts on the catwalk overhead. The husband sees the movement and recalculates. I keep my voice even. "Any contact with blood, bites, dead bodies, attacks?" The woman answers. "At a rest stop, a man came at another driver. I pulled my daughter back. He fell. I didn't touch him." Kelly checks them under the canopy. Clean, tired, dehydrated, no visible injuries. A normal family, a family a decent person wants to help. Marta already has the board in her hand with the numbers. "We're at 22 if we admit all current clean arrivals," she says quietly. "We have room right now. Room, not capacity." I ask the husband, "Can you work?" He blinks. "What?" "Can you fix engines, wire panels, weld, farm, teach, cook for groups, treat water, handle medical care, run inventory, repair plumbing, do security, pour concrete, maintain batteries?" His face turns blank because 10 minutes ago he still thinks this is a rich man's shelter hotel where desperate people get lucky. "I can drive." I nod once. I need more than that. He swears at me. The woman starts crying without sound. The girl stays asleep. I hand them 6 bottles of water, 2 ration packs, and a paper map with 3 marked locations. 1 church in the next town that may still be open. 1 maintenance yard with water tanks, and 1 dry campground with shade structures. It is not enough. I know it. I still do it because I cannot bring myself to send a child away with nothing. The husband throws the map back at my chest. The woman picks it up off the ground after a second and leads him away by the sleeve while he keeps talking under his breath about rich cowards behind walls. I let the church shuttle in because 1 passenger is a dialysis tech and another is a retired wastewater operator. I let the plumbing supplier van in because the driver has copper fittings, PEX, gaskets, filters, pipe dope, and enough repair stock to matter. I let the biker in because he is a combat medic with 2 full trauma kits strapped to his rear rack and a calm way of answering questions that says he understands systems. I turn the minivan away because the mother has a deep bite on her calf under a towel and tries to hide it until Kelly cuts the fabric loose. After that, word gets out at the gate that screening is real, and I start hearing the anger build. People understand bad luck. People understand a locked door. People get ugly when the locked door belongs to a man they have seen on television standing in front of a wall he built with lottery money. I can hear it in the way voices change when my name gets recognized. Not Garrett, not Sir, not Owner, Lotto Guy, Fortress Guy, Desert King. The names from the old clips come back with dust on them and a harder edge. A little before noon, the first helicopter comes over low enough to shake the greenhouse skin. It is not military, it is local news, painted bright, camera pod under the nose. It circles once. I can see the lens turn toward the compound. Ben raises his rifle toward the sky, not aiming, just letting the pilot understand the airspace has rules now. The helicopter stays wide after that. I cannot hear the reporter, but I know what he is doing. He is probably saying my name. He is probably replaying the old footage. He is probably asking whether the man mocked for building a fortress now has the last safe address in the county. The helicopter heads south 20 minutes later and never comes back. By noon, the receiving yard is full. Quarantine is half occupied. The dorm assignments are started. The kitchen is running hot, and I am in the water control room with Joel Vance, who arrived in the church shuttle and turns out to be better than any resume. He is 60 if he is a day, narrow in the shoulders, still steady, with hands that smell faintly of chlorine and old metal even after he washes them. He studies my tank gauges and treatment board. "You built a good backbone," he says. "You stocked for hardware failure. You did not stock for bad human math. That obvious?" He taps the side of the flow meter. Every shelter owner plans for how much a person needs on paper. Then the first week comes, and every person uses more paper, more wipes, more soap, more reassurance, more hot water if you let him, more food because fear makes him chew. A good place survives its plumbing first. I let that sit because it is true, and I hate true things that arrive late. The first death inside my walls happens at 1:27. Deputy Colin Reese is in quarantine room 2. Door camera on, vitals logged, no bite marks, no fever, no signs of infection. Kelly checked him twice. He sits up, drinks half a bottle of water, tries to talk to dispatch again, fails, lies back down, and goes pale. Kelly is with a pregnant woman in room 5 when the monitor alarm starts. By the time she reaches him, he is seizing. She calls for the crash bag. I get there with her and Ben right behind me. Colin's pulse is all over the place, and then gone. There is no time for speeches or dread. Kelly starts working because that is what her hands know. Chest compressions, airway, drug kit open. Ben watches the door. I watch the monitor because I am useless for half a second and need something to do. Colin does not come back. Kelly stops and says, "Time of death, 1:29. Nobody moves right after. The room is too small for grief anyway. Then Colin opens his eyes. He does not gasp. He does not speak. He turns his head and comes off the cot fast enough that Kelly loses a step, backing away. Ben hits him with the door edge, hard, driving him sideways. I slam the steel shut with Kelly still inside the threshold and hear her shoes scrape. Colin comes at the gap with his mouth open and a sound I do not want in my building again. Ben shoves the emergency restraint pole through the handles. Kelly is breathing through her nose, face white, not saying a word. She looks at me, then at the camera, then back at me. I know what she is asking, and I do not answer because I do not know yet if I can. Colin hits the inside of the door twice more. Then he keeps moving in the small room, striking the wall, the sink, the cot frame, the door, without any sense left in him. Dead means dead doesn't stop it, Kelly says finally. Nobody argues. What happens after that moves in clipped steps because clean thinking is all we have left. The pregnant woman in room 5 gets transferred farther down the hall. Ben brings a captive bolt gun from the maintenance cabinet because we stocked one for livestock emergencies if we ever expanded to goats or pigs. Kelly does not want a firearm discharge in the corridor. I do not want it either. Ben looks at me one time and I nod because there is no good option hiding behind the next minute. He goes in alone. The sound is short and heavy. Colin drops. Ben drags the body onto a tarp. Kelly cries only after the door is shut again and the floor is being cleaned. She keeps working while she cries. That bothers me more than if she sat down. I order every new intake time doubled. Kelly wants 6 hours minimum now. Ben wants 12. Marta wants a rule written in full and posted at every door. I want 10 different impossible things at once. More nurses, more rooms, more walls, more time, a government response, a cure, a different morning. Instead, I write the rule on the whiteboard in the control room with my own hand, so nobody can pretend he misunderstood later. Any death is treated as immediate hostile reanimation risk. No body is left unattended. No exceptions. By 3 p.m, the line outside the gate reaches nearly 40 people. Some arrived by car. Some arrived on foot from the highway. 2 men pull a wagon with water jugs and toolboxes. 1 woman pushes an office chair with her mother tied into it using scarves. A pastor in dusty black carries a metal lockbox against his chest and keeps trying to speak to whoever will listen. A group of 6 in bright motocross gear arrive on dirt bikes and sit with engines idling until Ben threatens to close the outer lane completely. The heat drags tempers thin. Arguments break out under the shade canopy before I even get to people. A man accuses a woman of cutting the line. 1 brother punches another over a gas can. A kid vomits in the gravel. Somebody starts recording on a phone and shouting that I have enough space for everybody and I am choosing who lives. He is not entirely wrong about the choosing. That is the part nobody mocked in interviews because it made good television to focus on the walls. The real obscene thing about a fortress is not that a rich man built one. It is that eventually a rich man or his staff stands at a gate and sorts human beings by usefulness, exposure risk, and whether keeping a promise to 1 person might kill 20 inside later. I let in a middle-aged science teacher because she has 10 sealed bins of curriculum supplies and immediately organizes the children already inside into 1 room where they stop staring at the walls and start doing simple tasks. I let in a refrigeration tech because my cold storage matters more than 1 more armed man. I let in a widow with a trailer full of dry dog food and cat litter because those bags can stretch calories in ugly ways if things get bad. And because she also has a ledger with every bag counted, which tells me she knows inventory. I turn away 3 men with rifles and no supplies because one of them is drunk and another lies twice during screening. I turn away a young couple because the man has fresh blood under both thumbnails and will not say whose it is. Every yes builds pressure behind it. Every no makes a new enemy. After 4, the network finally dies for good. My phone goes to emergency calls only, and then to nothing. Internet drops. Satellite backup keeps the cameras internal and gives us one thin data connection, but outside communication becomes fragments. Cached maps, weather update, one federal advisory that says stay home and avoid contact with infected individuals, then no more. The world narrows to the wall, the yard, the dorms, the roof, the road. At 5:30, a fuel truck appears on the access road. For one hopeful second, I think it is county support or some contracted delivery that somehow kept moving. Then I see the dent in the driver's side fender and recognize the cab. Vic Tanner. He handled perimeter electronics during year 3 before I fired him for padding invoices and moving material off-site. He smiled when I confronted him. He smiled again when he left and said I would regret burning a bridge with a man who knew my system layouts. I had the access codes changed, cameras remapped, overrides rewritten. I still do not like seeing his truck. He pulls under the canopy and steps down slow, palms out, sunglasses on, boots dusty. Behind the tanker are 2 pickups with 6 more people total. His brother Dale, 2 laborers I vaguely remember from the old install crew, 1 heavy-set woman with a toddler on her hip, and 2 teen boys. Hell of a day, Garrett, Vic says. Ben is already on the catwalk above him. Take the glasses off. Vic does it with a smile that never reaches his eyes. I brought 1,800 gallons of diesel. You want it or not? He knows exactly what lever to pull. The generator plant is backup only because the solar field and batteries carry most load in daylight, but diesel still runs the emergency spine, heavy pumps, welders, cold storage backup, and any true defense situation that drags into night under full lights. 1,800 gallons buys time. I step forward until I am in the shade line with him. Where'd you get it? Ag supplier south of Needles. Owner was gone. Pumps were dead. Tank was full. He shrugs. Call it scavenging if that helps your conscience. And you came here because? He glances up at the wall, then back at me. Because I know how you think. You built for the end of the world. Well, here it is. He says it softly enough that only I hear the edge in it. Kelly screens his people. Clean, all of them. Dusty, frightened, hard-eyed, but clean. The toddler has a cut on her forehead from broken glass. 1 teen boy has sprained his wrist. Dale has a fresh scrape on his cheek that Kelly cleans while he stares past her shoulder into the yard, counting assets without trying to hide it. Marta leans toward me. We need the fuel. Ben leans toward me from the ladder. He needs to stay outside. Both are right. I hate both for being right. I compromise in the dumbest possible way, which means I let Vic's group into the outer motor pool only, not the main residential block, pending extended observation and work assignment. Fuel goes to tank first. Weapons to lockup. No access badges except escorted. Vic accepts too easily. That should have been the final warning I needed. The tanker transfer runs into dusk. Luis and Nate handle hose connection, while Joel monitors the storage reading. Watching the number climb on the fuel gauge should calm me. It does not. Every useful thing comes attached to a person now, and every person brings needs, opinions, history, leverage, injury, fear, gossip, and sometimes a knife in his boot. Once the sun drops, the desert changes shape fast. The walls cool slower than the dirt outside. Heat hangs in the yard. Floodlights come on 1 row at a time to half power. The first real group of infected reaches the outer gate just after dark. There are 9 of them. 2 in reflective road vests. 1 woman in what used to be a hotel uniform. One teenage boy without shoes. The rest look like travelers who got trapped on the road and kept moving until moving turned into this. They do not rush together. They arrive in fragments, drawn by vehicle noise, voices, light, and whatever else now pulls the dead toward the living. One slams against the outer bars with enough force to strip skin from his forehead. Another keeps clawing at the steel until fingers bend the wrong way and keep working anyway. Every person at the wall goes quiet watching them. I have seen the clips. Hospital hallways, parking lots, a gas station with somebody filming from the roof. That is not the same as having one stand 10 feet away from your own gate under your own lights. Distance on a screen lets the mind keep making excuses. Drugs, riot, rabies, mass hysteria. A body battering itself against steel until teeth crack on the bars takes the excuses away. Eli is not supposed to be on the wall, but I find him there anyway beside Anna with both hands gripping the concrete lip. He looks down through the firing slot and says, "That one was a kid." Anna puts her hand on the back of his neck and keeps it there. "Don't lean." Ben handles it clean. One shot at a time, controlled, no waste, no speech. The sound rolls off the wall and out over the flats. When the last body stops moving, no one cheers. Denise crosses herself. One of the church shuttle women starts sobbing quietly into a towel. A man I admitted 2 hours ago asks me if that noise will bring more. "Yes," I say. He nods once and does not ask a second question. The night becomes labor. That is the only way to survive the fear of it. Marta builds bunk assignments. Denise stretches dinner into vats and paper bowls. Kelly rechecks every quarantine room and starts a symptom board. Joel walks the water plant with me and points at every valve I need to learn by touch if the power goes fully dark. Luis chains the outer vehicle traps into a tighter pattern. Ben rotates wall watches. The school teacher, Ruth Larkin, keeps 12 children in one common room, folding blankets, sorting crayons, and writing names on masking tape for cots, because small jobs hold the mind together better than speeches. At 10:15, a pickup with 4 men rolls up outside the gate and stops beyond the floodlights. They do not come under the canopy. They stay in the dark and call out instead. "We know you got room." Ben tells them to step forward unarmed for screening. One laughs. "You know who I am?" "I do not, and I do not care." He says his name anyway. Chad Morrow, local developer. I know the name then. He tried to buy a water easement off me 2 years back and did a radio interview afterward calling me a dangerous eccentric with concrete delusions. He remembers me recognizing him because his voice turns tight. "You can't just wall off a whole lifeboat out here," he says. "We got families." I answer from the catwalk above the gate. Bring them to the light and we screen them. They're at a ranch south. We came first. That tells me enough. He wants inside before the families arrive so he can claim ground. Ben says, "Drop the weapons and approach." Chad spits in the dirt and drives off. 20 minutes later, one of the south cameras catches his pickup parked on the ridgeline half a mile out. Watching. I sleep for 40 minutes in a chair near the control room and wake because the lights dip. That gets every person in the building moving before I am fully upright. The main strip flickers once, twice, then holds on backup. Nate is already on the radio from the inverter room before I reach the hall. Battery rack 3 faulted. I'm isolating now. Could be heat, could be a short, could be somebody being stupid with an unauthorized load. "Anybody in there with you?" I ask. Luis. Marta too. I cut across the admin hall and out through the service corridor. The inverter building sits between the workshop and the battery bunker. Concrete shell, armored doors, thick cable trays feeding out to the field. Nate meets me inside with a flashlight between his teeth and sweat down both temples. Rack 3 is offline. One disconnect housing is open, not blown, not melted, open. Nate pulls the flashlight out. I didn't leave that exposed. Marta crouches by the panel, studies the latch, tool marks. Sabotage lands in the room without needing the word said. A fault is bad luck. An unlatched housing with fresh marks is a person. Ben is there 30 seconds later. He looks at the panel, then at me. You let Tanner in. I do not answer because there is no defense that does not sound weak. We lock the power room, seal tool access, issue escort rules for every restricted wing, and start a quiet search of the motor pool where Vic's group is quartered. He is awake on a cot before we even reach him. Boots on, expression annoyed rather than sleepy. That annoys me more. You search my people yet? He asks. We're starting now, Ben says. Vic lifts both hands from his blanket. Go ahead. We search everything. Bags, truck cabs, tanker compartments, tool rolls, boots, ceiling rafters in the bay, drain grates, toddler stroller, food bins. We find 2 undeclared pistols, 3 spare magazines, bolt cutters, and a ring of old contractor keys I did not know he still had. We do not find the tool used on the power housing. I take the keys from his palm myself. One more lie and you go outside. He holds my eyes. You won't do that. It is the calm certainty in his voice that bothers me. Not defiance certainty. By dawn on the second day, the line outside the gate is gone and replaced by something worse. Clusters. People are no longer arriving one by one hoping for fairness. They are sorting themselves into armed groups, family camps, and loose vehicle circles beyond the floodlight edge. Some set up tarps in the scrub. Some light cook fires even though the smoke marks them from miles away. Some keep driving when they see the numbers and want no part of crowd logic around a closed wall. I count almost 70 people outside by first light. Inside, including staff and admissions, we are at 64. The air smells wrong in the morning. Less like desert, more like exhaust, piss, food waste, hot plastic, and people who have started sleeping wherever they drop. I walk the wall with Ben and a clipboard, checking sectors and trying to act like an owner rather than a man who spent the whole night hearing a dead deputy hit the inside of a steel door. The north side is still clean. West side has 3 bodies from the gate contacts last night. South side camera shows vehicle camps in the wash beyond rifle range. East side, the approach road, is where the human problem is growing thickest. A woman is kneeling in front of the gate when I reach the east wall. No weapon visible. White blouse dirty at the sleeves. Hair pinned up badly. One little boy sitting beside her with a backpack in his lap. She is not yelling. She is holding a cardboard sign torn from a shipping box. Nurse. Pediatrics. I stare at that sign a long second. Ben sees it too. Trap? Maybe. Could be real too. I look at the boy. He is drawing lines in the gravel with one sneaker. Too calm to be coached well. Too tired maybe. Bring them in for screening, I say. Ben exhales through his nose but does not argue. Her name is Tessa Harmon. She worked pediatrics in Bullhead City. Her husband turned in their kitchen after collapsing with what he thought was the flu. She locked him in the pantry, took her son, and drove until the highway stopped. She has 1 duffel, 1 med pouch, 1 case of juice boxes, and a stare that says she has already crossed one thing she never imagined crossing. Kelly clears her after extended screening, and nearly hugs me for letting another nurse in. That is how it happens all day. Not with a grand policy, not with clean morality, but with small scenes that pile into a population. An elderly machinist with boxes of taps and dies. Two sisters with a truck full of seed and fencing staples from a feed store. A burned-out paramedic with an oxygen concentrator for his mother and enough guilt in his face to fill a room. One hard-faced ranch hand with a stock trailer full of feed, fencing tools, and a disciplined collie who turns out to be the best alarm system on site by nightfall. By noon, we are at 93 inside. The systems begin talking back. Septic load warning. Gray water recycle filters needing more frequent backwash. Kitchen complaining about dish soap usage. Dorm 1 fighting Dorm 3 over fan allocation. Medical asking for a second triage station. Security asking for more radios. Greenhouse humidity climbing with too many curious people opening doors to stare at crops. Water use per head already above what I budgeted. Joel walks with me between the treatment shed and cistern 3, pencil behind one ear, clipboard folded back. You can hold this number if discipline holds, he says. You cannot keep admitting without cutting daily allotment. How hard a cut? Hard enough that people notice. Numbers? He gives them to me. He does not soften them. I hate numbers when they stop being theory. At lunch, I stand on a pallet in the main yard because it is high enough for people to see me and low enough to keep this from turning into a speech. Nearly 100 faces look up. Some hopeful, some tired, some suspicious. Some already measuring whether I can be replaced. I tell them the truth because lies rot fast in enclosed places. Water is controlled starting now. Showers are by assignment only. Laundry schedule starts tonight. Power-heavy devices are banned unless approved. Weapon rules stay in place. Every resident works if he or she can work. No exceptions for pride, old jobs, or the fact that I once had enough money to hire contractors. That money is poured into concrete already. Concrete does not cook dinner. A man near the back asks how many more I am letting in. I answer, I don't know. That stirs the yard because uncertainty sounds weak even when it is honest. Vic speaks from near the motor bay door before I can move on. You built for hundreds. Why act broke now? Heads turn. He stands there with his arms folded, clean shirt. No sign of last night's search on his face. Dale is 2 steps behind him. Not a coincidence. A small audience is already forming around the line before I answer. I built walls for hundreds, I say. I stocked systems for less. There's a difference. Vic gives a short shrug. Could have fooled everybody watching the interviews. There it is. The public version of me thrown back into the yard as a weapon. I step off the pallet and walk straight toward him until we are close enough that he has to tilt his head up a little. This isn't an interview, I say. If you want to help, I've got work. If you want an audience, there's the gate. His mouth tightens for the first time since he arrived. Not much. Enough. Marta breaks the crowd by assigning work details on the spot. Smart. Always motion before rumor. The machinist goes to Luis. The sisters go to Farah in greenhouse support. Tessa goes to Kelly. The ranch hand gets perimeter maintenance. Ruth takes more children. Denise drafts every adult she can into kitchen, cleaning, storage, or hauling. Still, once the yard thins out, the crack Vic opened stays in the place. By late afternoon, the groups outside the gate start pressing harder. Not storming, pressing. A man with a megaphone appears. I cannot tell if it is Chad Morrow or someone from his camp. He keeps yelling that I have space and food, and I am violating emergency law by refusing civilians. Somebody else shouts that there is no law. Somebody starts banging a wrench on the outer bars in rhythm until Ben puts a round into the dirt 6 feet from his boots, and the banging stops. Then a motorhome limps up with both side mirrors gone and one front tire shredding itself. A husband jumps out waving both arms before the vehicle even stops. His wife is inside on the floor between the seats wrapped in blankets. He says she is sick, not bitten. He says she was hurt in a crash. He says please just let Kelly look at her. He says it too fast and too many times. Kelly climbs the step with me, and the smell inside the motorhome tells the story before the blanket comes back. Blood, waste, infection. The woman's forearm is bound with a dish towel soaked dark. Teeth marks under it. Fresh enough that the skin around them still pulls when she moves. The husband sees my face and starts talking harder. She was delirious. She grabbed a guy. I got her out. She's still her, okay. She's still her. She just needs help. The wife opens her eyes at that. She is still there enough to know what he is saying. That is the worst part. She knows. She knows, and she reaches for his wrist and says very softly, "Don't." I step down out of the vehicle because there is no version of this that ends with me bringing her through the gate. The husband follows, grabs my sleeve. "You said you had a nurse." Ben has him off me in a second, but not rougher than needed. The man crumples in the gravel anyway because his fight was never really with Ben. Kelly stands in the motorhome doorway with her head down. "I can give comfort meds," she says quietly. "Nothing more." The husband kneels there with his forehead against the lower step, while his wife breathes wet and shallow inside. There are maybe 30 people watching from outside camps now, more from the wall. My entire policy is on display in one hot, brutal scene. I tell Kelly to take him a syringe kit and a bottle of water. I tell Ben to clear space around the motorhome and keep everyone back. I tell Marta to close intake for the rest of the day. I do not watch what happens next. I know enough from the silence afterward. That night, the camps outside split into two kinds. People who understand the gate is real and start leaving under cover of dark, and people who decide the gate is the only thing in the world worth fighting over. The attack starts just before midnight with a fire at the south fence. It is small. Too small to be a real breach attempt. Burning cardboard and a little fuel shoved against the mesh outside the wall extension near Greenhouse 2. A distraction. Ben calls it over the radio, and half our mobile response goes south with extinguishers and a utility cart. I am already moving that way when Nate's voice cuts in sharp from the control room. "West camera blind. Repeat. West camera just went blind." I turn and run. The west side of the compound holds the service sally port, equipment sheds, and the maintenance ramp used during construction. It is less dramatic than the front gate, and that makes it more dangerous. Ben reaches it from the south corridor while I come through the workshop. We get there in time to hear metal strain. The outer sally door is partway open, not broken, unlocked. Dale Tanner is on the handwheel. One of the teen boys from Vic's group is beside him, trying to shove a crate against the threshold to keep it from rolling shut. Outside in the dark, two shapes are already squeezing through the gap. Not survivors, infected. Human hands opened the door, and dead bodies found it first. Ben fires before I can even process the whole picture. One infected drops in the gap. The second keeps coming. Half over the first body, fingers scraping concrete. Dale lets go of the wheel and runs, The teen freezes. I grab the crate, slam it sideways, and pin the infected between steel and the threshold hard enough that bones crack. Ben finishes it with one close shot. The hall fills with shouting behind us. Vic appears from the bay door in boots and jeans, sees Dale running, sees the half-open Sally door, and for one naked second, his face shows the thing he has been hiding. Not fear, not surprise. Just calculation gone wrong. He had people out there. He had timed the distraction. He had a man on the wheel. He did not account for the dead arriving first. Ben gets his rifle on him, on the ground. Vic does not move fast enough. I hit him with the crate corner across the jaw and he goes down hard on one knee. The teen starts crying. Dale is halfway down the corridor before Luis tackles him into a tool cabinet so hard both go through the door. We get the Sally door shut. We dog it down. We stand there with the smell of powder, dust, and dead skin in the air, while alarms still ring from the south side and people pour into the hall barefoot and confused. I put Vic in quarantine room 1 with his hands zip-tied behind him and Ben outside the door. He talks through the steel for half an hour. At first he says Dale acted alone. Then he says he was only trying to bring his brother's family in from outside. Then he says I forced this by refusing to use the capacity I bragged about. Then he says if I turn him out, the crowd will tear this place apart anyway because people know I am hoarding. He keeps talking until I get tired of hearing his voice as a shape in the hallway. I open the observation slot and say, "One more word," and I muzzle the door. He finally shuts up. The next morning, I gather every adult resident in the yard, except medical watch and wall posts. I do not speak from a pallet this time. I stand on the concrete with Vic visible through the quarantine window behind me. Dale sits on the ground nearby with one eye swelling shut and his wrists cuffed to a pipe rail. The teen is in a chair under Ruth's supervision because using a child as a symbol would rot the place faster than any speech could fix it. I explain what happened. No drama, no extra language. Attempted unauthorized gate opening. Internal coordination with outside parties. Immediate risk to compound. New restricted movement. New escort policy. New badge zones. Anyone caught tampering with gates, power, water, medstock, or radios goes outside if the act is deliberate and puts residents at risk. One man asks if that includes family. Yes, I say. A woman asks if I am making all decisions alone. No, I say. Marta, Ben, Kelly, Joel, and Farah are in system meetings from now on. If I go down, Marta runs operations. Ben runs defense. Kelly runs medical. Joel runs water and utilities. Farah runs food production. That helps more than anything noble I could have said. People do not trust lone kings. They trust structure, even if they dislike the people in it. We spend the whole third day turning a private compound into a town, whether I want a town or not. Ruth opens a proper child room in classroom B with chores, lessons, and quiet hours. Denise shifts kitchen from emergency feeding to measured service. Joel posts water allotment by dorm. Tessa and Kelly convert the old rec room into step-down medical. Farah locks greenhouse entry to crew only and starts teaching 6 residents how not to kill seedlings with good intentions. Luis and the machinist turn scrap steel and old rebar into additional anti-vehicle barriers. Nate hardwires manual alarms into every restricted wing so a cut camera cannot blind us again. Marta invents a paper badge system because electronics alone now feel stupid. I spend half the day in meetings I never wanted, and the other half carrying concrete, moving cots, checking gate seals, and settling stupid arguments before they can grow teeth. A woman in dorm 2 accuses another of stealing powdered milk. A man in the West Barracks refuses toilet duty because he used to own 3 restaurants. I hand him a brush and tell him that history is over. Eli helps Ruth tape name cards to bunk ends and walk straighter by evening because having a job matters when the adults keep looking at the walls. Outside, the camps harden. Chad Morrow's pickup stays on the ridge. More vehicles join him. Not many. Enough. Through binoculars, I count rifles, coolers, tents, 1 small generator, 1 water buffalo trailer. Organized enough to wait. Organized enough to be trouble. Another camp farther south is families and older people under tarps. No clear weapons, weaker every hour. I keep wanting to help that second camp more, and knowing every gallon sent out becomes an advertisement to the first. Anna finds me at dusk by the north wall where I am checking bolts on a ladder rack just to keep my hands moving. "You can't keep staring at the ones outside," she says. "I can if they're staring back." She leans against the parapet and looks over the flats with me. Eli heard somebody in the dorm saying, "You're enjoying this." That lands colder than the air. I'm not. I know that. He knows that. Some people need a villain more than a plan. I tighten a bolt that does not need tightening. I spent 5 years being everybody's joke. Now if I refuse a gate, I'm a monster. If I open it and the whole place collapses, I'm still the monster. Anna does not feed me comfort. She never has. Then stop thinking about what role you're playing in other people's heads. Run the place. That is why she is here and not dead on a freeway shoulder. She has no patience for self-pity when work exists. On the 4th morning, the South family camp starts breaking down. The weakest are out of water. A little girl wanders too close to the wall and sits in the dirt because she has nowhere else to sit. A gray-haired man waves a white towel and asks if he can trade jewelry for 1 bucket. Chad's camp on the ridge watches all of it through optics and does nothing. The decent thing and the smart thing split right there. Ben says no external aid. Every drop you send out buys another hour of crowd. Another hour of crowd buys another chance at a breach. Kelly says if we let children die 30 yards from the wall, the place will rot inside. Half these people came in because they still believed there was 1 decent door left in the county. Joel says we can spare a measured amount 1 time if it is treated as external decontamination support and if nobody crosses the threshold. Marta says anything we do needs rules and armed cover. I decide on the ugliest middle path possible because middle paths are all I have left. We rig a hose station outside the outer gate through the maintenance fill port without opening the pedestrian lane. 2 residents in masks fill marked containers 1 at a time under watch while Ben covers from above and the outer crowd stays back. Water only. No food. No admission. No gathering at the port beyond the marked line. Families first. The scene goes wrong in 6 minutes. A man from Chad's group steps in out of order. Ben barks at him to back off. He pretends not to hear. One of the South Camp women shoves him. He swings at her. Then 10 people are moving at once, dust kicking up, buckets falling, children crying, and the line turning into a crush around the fill point. I slam the valve shut from inside. Marta hits the external siren. Ben fires 1 warning round overhead. It still takes half a minute for order to come back, and in half a minute, an infected woman stumbling in from the wash almost reaches the crowd before anyone notices her. A ranch hand from inside the wall drops her from the parapet. The people outside scatter, then bunch together again in the wrong direction, which tells me panic is now more dangerous than hunger. We end the water distribution after 8 families. The crying outside that afternoon is hard to work through. The anger is easier. Anger has shape. Crying just sits against concrete and works its way in. On the 5th day, the first true ration meeting happens in the control room. Not emergency math. Governance math. Numbers on the board. Water remaining. Crop timeline. Protein stock. Fuel burn. Med depletion. Population at 112 after 2 more medical admissions and 1 birth complication that Kelly handles well enough to leave both mother and child alive. I stare at the number because I never pictured hearing an infant cry in here. That single cry made half the dorm look human again for an hour. Joel taps the board. At this number, we hold if gray water stays clean and no major leaks hit. At 140, you start eating margin. At 160, one system failure becomes a crisis. Cap stays here, Marta says. Farah nods. Food agrees. Kelly hesitates, then nods too. She hates it most. That matters. Ben does not hesitate. Gate shuts. No more admissions. Period. I look around the room. Every face is tired. Every person here has done enough to be done with me if I start lying. So I say it aloud. Cap stays at 112. Gate shuts unless we lose residents or a skilled arrival changes the equation enough to matter. Nobody says I am wrong. Nobody says I am right either. They just start planning around it, which is worse in its own way because now the decision is real. We post the notice at noon. The reaction outside is immediate. Chad's Ridge Camp sends 2 men with a loudspeaker. They raid the cap notice back at the wall in a fake formal voice and then start naming supplies they claim I have stockpiled. Rice, diesel, antibiotics, solar batteries, water tanks, greenhouse yield, bunk count. Some of it is guessed. Some of it is too accurate. That means Vic talked before he got inside or Dale did after. Maybe both. One line sticks. This place was built with public lottery money. It belongs to the people. That stirs the crowd outside more than anything about morality or law. Ownership is easier to chant than fairness. Inside the wall, residents hear it too. A man in Dorm 4 asks Marta that evening whether residents get a say in admissions since the place is now a community. The question itself is normal. The timing is not. Rumor moves faster than infection when confinement starts. Marta answers him in front of everyone. Residents get assigned duties, heard in meetings, and protected by the same rules. They do not vote the gates open because that kills the place. Good answer. Hard answer. Necessary. That night, somebody cuts the chlorine dosing line to cistern 2. Not fully. Just enough to leak and drop treatment rate. Joel catches it during rounds, because he is the kind of man who notices when a drip sounds out of rhythm. If he had missed it until morning, part of the stored water would have gone untreated long enough to force a shutdown and flush. I stand over the sliced tubing with a flashlight and feel my entire body go still in that dangerous way where rage turns clear. Water, power, gate. The hand inside keeps going for the spine. We search again. Harder. Ben takes no softness into it this time. Bags dumped, bunks overturned, every off-limits door checked against logs. Residents complain. Some deserve to complain. I let the complaints burn out on their own because there is no clean way to say your neighbor might be trying to poison your plumbing. We find nothing until Eli says he saw one of Chad's men near the south wall at dusk. Not inside. Near it. Outside. Moving low behind stacked pallets from the construction leftovers beyond the perimeter. One of the blind spots from old media days where deliveries used to stage before I extended the camera array. I go up with Ben at first light, and there it is. A cache shoved into the scrub 20 yards beyond the wall where the camera angle used to be weak. Wire cutters, bottled water, protein bars, bolt pry, and 2 small radios wrapped in shirts to keep the dust out. A dead drop. Vic was not trying to bring in family. He was coordinating. That changes the clock. I pull him from quarantine and sit him in the interview room off admin with Ben at the door and Marta beside me. No threats at first. Just the photos of the cache on the table, the old keys, the attempted gate opening, Dale's statement after a night with his face swelling shut and his options reduced. Vic looks at the photos and finally stops pretending to be bored. "How many out there?" I ask. He says nothing. Marta answers for him. "Enough." I lean forward. "How many?" He looks at me then, really looks, and the public mask finally peels away. 26 with Chad. More if he folds the family camp into it by force. He says once the food gets thin enough, they'll come to him because they won't have a choice. That is the first useful truth he has given me. What was the plan? Take the west gate. Open from inside. Flood a few at a time, hold the yard, make you negotiate. You mean seize it. He gives a small shrug. You built a town and kept acting like it was a private workshop. I stand so fast my chair kicks the wall. Ben shifts at the door, ready. I do not hit Vic. I want to. I do not. Hitting him would only make me feel brief relief and leave him exactly as useful as before. Instead, I ask the next question. How soon? Vic looks at the table. Soon. That means tonight or tomorrow. Men plotting a seizure do not enjoy delay once discovered. We spend the 6th day turning the compound into a locked engine. All external pallets and leftover material near the wall get dragged inside or burned. West sector gets 2 additional barriers welded in place. The south blind angle gets a new pole camera up with hardwired line. All adult residents are assigned emergency muster positions. Kids and vulnerable residents get moved to the interior hall near the clinic and classroom block. Fire gear is staged at north, south, and west. Floodlights are rewired for full burst activation from the control room. Farah wets greenhouse roofs early to reduce ignition risk. Luis positions the forklift as a mobile block for the main yard. Joel fills every clean container he can in case water lines get hit. Denise preps cold rations so the kitchen can go dark if needed. It feels less like a home every hour and more like a ship sealing compartments before impact. I make one decision late in the afternoon that I know some residents will never forgive and others will forever say came too late. I take Vic and Dale to the outer gate in flex cuffs with 3 armed escorts and put them outside. Not at sunset drama distance. Not speeches. Just process. I tell them both the rule. Deliberate acts risking the compound end in expulsion. I tell them I am not executing them because this place is still run by rules. I set their water on the ground outside the bars and cut their cuffs after the gate is shut again. Chad's Ridge group sends 2 men down to retrieve them after dark. Ben watches through optics and says, "He'll come tonight now." I know. The air after sunset is still and dirty. No wind, bad for sound, good for hearing engines. I walk the whole interior after dark because I need every person to see me moving and not hidden in the control room. Dorm 1, quiet, a mother humming to a baby born yesterday. Dorm 3, 2 men playing cards with no chips, just numbers on paper. Clinic, Kelly changing a bandage by battery lantern. Classroom B, Eli asleep sitting up against the wall with a book sliding off his lap. Workshop, Luis and the machinist drinking coffee over a welding table, both too tired to joke. Greenhouse 1. Farah checking leaf undersides with a flashlight because plants do not care that the world ended. When I reach the east wall, Anna is there alone. "You should sleep," she says. "You should too." She glances out beyond the floodlights where the outer dark holds shapes I cannot quite resolve. "You know what Dad would say?" I do. He would say a man does not spend his life hoping to be right about catastrophe. He just gets ready in case he is. He said versions of that when we were kids, and I ignored him because most hard men in rural Nevada say some version of it, and most of them never build anything beyond a shed and a pantry. Maybe I got more from him than I admit. "I know," I say. Anna rests both forearms on the parapet and looks out. "You were not crazy. You were just early. That helps for about 3 seconds. Then the first engine starts in the dark. It is southwest of the wall, then another northeast, then another on the ridge. Not rushing, coordinating." Ben's voice cracks over the radio. "Multiple vehicles moving. All sectors stand to." The compound wakes in layers. Boots on concrete. Door bars lifting. Generator backup spinning to ready. Floodlights charging. The collie in the ranch hand's room starts barking before any alarm goes. I reach the control room at the same time Marta does. Nate is already at the lighting panel. Joel is at the utility board because water and power are as much targets as gates. Ben comes in only long enough to point at the map and issue positions. Then he is gone again to the west tower. The first impact is at the front gate. Not a true ram, just a pickup pushed into the approach barriers to test spacing. It crashes, horn blaring, driver door open, nobody visible. Decoy. 20 seconds later, fire blooms at the north fence where somebody has launched road flares and fuel bottles over the wall into the scrub. Small fires again. Not enough to burn the wall, enough to split attention. Then the west camera catches movement in the wash. A lot of movement. Not all living. Chad's people used noise and headlights to drag infected in behind their vehicle line. I see them in the monitor, figures stumbling and then quickening toward the floodlight edge while 2 trucks angle toward the west service sector. Human attackers in front would have been bad enough. Human attackers dragging dead bodies into the equation turns the whole field into chaos. "Nate," I say. Full lights west. He throws the bank on. The desert outside the west wall goes white. Every person on the line can see now. Chad's lead truck, another behind it, men bailing out with chain hooks and pry bars, Vic beside one of the doors with a bolt cutter, and behind them at least 20 infected, pulled in by the engine noise and suddenly redirected toward the nearest moving bodies. Ben opens fire from the tower. Not wasteful, not warning. Real shots now. One man drops beside the chain. Chad dives behind his truck. Vic runs sideways toward the drainage dip. The infected hit the first fallen attacker and stop being a crowd for half a second because fresh meat interrupts every plan. "West Yard team move," Ben barks over radio. Luis shoves the forklift into gear. I am already out the door before Marta can tell me to stay inside. She is right. I go anyway. The west interior corridor is noise and hard light and running feet. Residents are where they should be mostly, which is the only reason the whole place does not dissolve at once. Ben is above. Luis is below with the forklift. The ranch hand and 2 former deputies from later intake are on the inner barricade with shotguns and steel shields improvised from workshop plate. The teen boy from Vic's group who cried at the first breach is in the hallway with Ruth and 8 children because somebody still gave him a job instead of a sentence, and that may be the only reason he is not on the wall outside tonight. The west outer door shudders once. Chain on the other side. Pry force. Somebody knows the seam. Then a second impact. Heavier. Not the door. The maintenance section of wall where old construction access was backfilled and reinforced, but never loved as much as the main gate because money and time both run out somewhere. Dust spills from the interior block seam. Another hit. Vehicle bumper. They found the softer tooth. Forklift! I yell. Luis is already moving. He angles the machine straight at the inner service barrier and uses the forks to shove a pallet stack of concrete bags and steel drums into the approach lane, creating a dead wedge behind the wall section. Smart. Fast. Ugly. Exactly what works. A siren starts in the South Hall. For one cursed second, I think a second breach is underway. Then Kelly's voice comes over local comms. Clinic secure. One resident collapse in dorm 2. Not breach related. Even in an assault, bodies keep doing body things. Nothing pauses because humans would prefer single problems. The west door seam screams open 3 inches. A hook snakes through. One of the former deputies hacks at it with an axe until the chain drops away outside. Then gunfire cracks through the gap both ways. Concrete chips fly off the inner post. The deputy falls back, clutching his shoulder. Kelly cannot get to him yet. I drag him by the collar behind the forklift wheel while Luis keeps shoving weight into the lane. The infected outside reach Chad's truck, then spill around it toward movement, noise, light, all of it. Somebody out there starts yelling for the gate to open because his own plan is now eating him alive. Vic appears in the seam for half a second, with a pry bar and wild eyes and no control left in him. I do not think. I take the deputy's dropped shotgun off the ground, brace on the forklift mast, and fire once through the opening. Vic disappears. No speech, no drama, just absence where he stood. That is the moment the whole attack changes. Chad's men lose shape. The infected do not. Ben keeps picking targets above. Marta is in the corridor with extra ammo and water because she refuses to stay in a room while other people hold the line. Anna is moving residents deeper inside 2 at a time, one hand on Eli's shoulder, face set hard. Joel stays at the utility board because if power dies, the place gets killed blind. Nate shouts from the comm that battery draw is peaking and he is shifting non-essential loads off. Farah reports Greenhouse South intact. Greenhouse 1 minor panel damage. No fire spread. Every person is carrying one piece of the place, and if one piece drops, the rest gets harder. The outer wall section takes one more vehicle hit and cracks, but does not fail. The concrete bags and forklift wedge behind it hold enough of the shock to keep the whole panel from folding in. Chad's surviving men try to pull back toward the trucks and find the dead already in with them. One man climbs a hood and swings a bar at a woman in motel uniform. Another trips and never gets back up. Headlights skid wild across the wash. One truck drives off half sideways with its passenger door flapping open and 3 infected hanging off the bed. Then the real danger arrives. Not the breach, not the attackers, but the noise load. Every shot, every engine rev, every shouted order pulls more out of the dark. Ben sees it first from the tower. Cut firing, cut all non-essential firing. Dead are stacking West Wash. We obey because discipline is the only advantage left. The outer fight goes quieter in ugly stages. Single controlled shots. No panic bursts. Engines fading as the surviving attackers scatter. The infected keep coming anyway, drawn by what already happened. By 1 a.m, the west side is no longer an active assault. It is a containment problem. Bodies at the wall, movement in the wash, groans, scrapes. Occasional impacts as one wanders into concrete and keeps working. Nobody inside sleeps. We spend the next 4 hours clearing what reached the wall line and holding the rest at distance with lights, silence, and only necessary shots. The cracked west section gets braced from inside with steel posts, forklift pressure, chain binders, and every anchoring trick Luis can remember. Kelly works the wounded on the floor of the service corridor because moving them farther risks the line. One deputy loses a lot of blood and keeps apologizing for it until Kelly tells him to shut up and hold still. Chad's Ridge camp burns by dawn, not because we torched it, but because one overturned lantern or hot engine or dropped fuel can met the wrong patch of dry ground while the dead moved through it. Orange light flickers over tents and hoods and throws the whole wash into a stuttering picture I will keep seeing for the rest of my life. Just after sunrise, the west side goes still enough to count. 9 dead attackers visible, maybe more dragged off in the dark. At least 20 infected bodies around the wash edge and the wall line. 1 truck burned to frame, 1 escaped south, 1 abandoned near the service trench. Chad is not among the bodies I can clearly identify. He may be out there with a bite. He may be already dead under another man. He may have run. It no longer matters much. Inside, we have 3 wounded and no dead. That sentence should feel good. It does not. It feels temporary. It feels bought. It feels expensive in ways paper cannot count. We hold a work-only morning. No gatherings, no speeches. Everybody with a task gets one and does it. Bodies outside are dealt with by controlled teams under cover once the sun climbs and movement slows. We do not bring any human remains inside, no matter whose they are. Kelly confirms the wounded stable. Joel checks every water line. Nate checks every conduit. Luis and the machinist start a real repair on the west wall seam. Farah and her crew replace greenhouse panels broken by stray impacts. Denise serves cold beans, crackers, canned peaches, and coffee, so nobody needs the main kitchen fires high. At noon, after the line has held and the noise outside has settled to manageable levels, I call the residents into the main yard again. This time, nobody asks for a pallet. They stand where they are, faces burned, tired, streaked with dust and sleeplessness. Kids tucked close to adults, wounded on chairs. Kelly with a red smear still on one cuff from the service corridor. Ben above us on the catwalk because some habits stay necessary. I tell them what happened and what happens now. Chad's group is broken. External threat remains. Gate stays shut. Water stays rationed. Work rotations double on repairs and sanitation. We are no longer a private shelter pretending this is temporary. We are a settlement, and settlements survive on rules, labor, and the fact that no one here gets to stand aside because somebody else once had money. Then I say one more thing, because leaving it unsaid would poison the yard. I built this place with lottery money, I tell them. That part is true. I built it because I thought the world could fail in ways people on television kept laughing at. That part is true too. What is not true is that this place belongs to me in the way it did a week ago. I own the walls on paper. Paper burned somewhere out on the highway. From here on, this place belongs to the people who keep it alive. That does not mean the gates open because a crowd yells. It means every person inside carries part of it, and every person who risks it answers to all of us. Nobody claps. Good. I would have hated clapping. Marta starts reading the afternoon assignments right away, which is another reason she is better at this than most men who ever wanted command. Motion before emotion. Again. The next days settle into a pattern so hard and practical that the old life begins to sound fake when I remember it. Wake before light, wall check, utility check, medical count, kitchen count, water count, exterior scan, repair crews, teaching block for the kids, greenhouse labor, waste hauling, laundry by batch, security drill, quiet hours, rule hearing for violations, burial and burn procedures for any outside bodies too near the wall. Every day the place becomes less mine and more real. We do not become nice. That is not how pressure works. We become functional. The restaurant owner cleans toilets without complaint after a week because infection in the latrines would kill more people than his pride is worth. The science teacher starts a shift board that reduces arguments by half. Tessa runs a mother and child clinic corner out of classroom A. The ranch hand trains 4 residents and the collie to patrol the inner service lanes at dusk. Eli learns valve names from Joel and can now tell by ear which pump is cavitating. Anna runs intake records for a gate that mostly stays closed because order still matters even when entry does not. On the 9th day, a ham operator 2 counties over finally answers our call. His voice is weak with static and disbelief. He says military units are moving in some cities and nowhere near others. He says shelters are overrun. He says fuel is gone in most towns. He says the dead are not rumors anymore. He says hold what you have. We already are. One evening, a week and a half after the attack, I go up to the east wall alone right before sunset. The desert is still the desert. Long light on stone, dry air, scrub, dust, distant road. But it is full of marks now. Burned camps, abandoned cars, black tire arcs. One half-collapsed tent. A truck sitting open with the doors wide as if the driver meant to come back in 1 minute. The world beyond the wall has not become dramatic. It has become emptied out in patches, ruined in practical ways, and dangerous because too many things that should be simple are not simple anymore. Behind me, inside the wall, I can hear dinner service starting, ladles on metal, a baby crying, somebody laughing once at something small and tired and still worth laughing at, a radio check from the North Tower, the forklift backing up with its warning chirp, the greenhouse mister kicking on for 10 seconds, human sounds, maintenance sounds, settlement sounds. A lot of people spent years saying I built this place because I wanted to rule something. That was never it. I built it because I could not stand the idea of being trapped in a breaking world with nothing between the people I loved and the collapse except hope and plywood. Then the breaking came, and it turned out walls are only the beginning. After the walls come water and sleep and rules and waste and medicine, and whose turn it is to scrub the clinic floor, and whether a man keeps his mouth shut when a line needs holding. After the walls come all the ordinary things that decide whether a place stays human. I still carry the keys. I still know what every cubic yard of concrete cost, and which argument won us the extra reinforcement in the west seam that kept the wall up that night. But when I walk the yard now, people do not look at me the way they did in interviews. Nobody here cares about the jackpot. Nobody here cares about the old clips. They care whether the lights stay on, whether the tanks hold, whether the gate team is awake, whether the tomatoes take in greenhouse 2, whether Kelly still has enough antibiotics for one more infected cut that started from a fence scrape and not a bite. That is better. That is cleaner. At dusk, Ben comes up the stairs and joins me on the parapet. He hands me the binoculars without saying why. On the far ridge, miles out, I pick up movement, a small group on foot angling north, too far to threaten, too far even to read clearly. Survivors or raiders or just people still moving because stopping means ending. I watch them until they disappear behind a fold of land. "You opening for anyone?" Ben asks. "Not tonight." He nods once. Not approval, just record. The sun drops. The lights along the inner yard come on one row at a time. Beyond the wall, the dark fills in. It does not rush. It just arrives. Inside the compound, the dinner line shortens, the wash crew starts, the clinic light burns steady, and Joel radios that Cistern 2 is back to proper treatment after the repair. Another ordinary victory. Another piece held. I stand there a little longer with the binoculars hanging from one hand, and dust on my boots and concrete cooling under my palms. And I understand something I should have understood before the first shovel ever hit the ground. A fortress is not a wall with guns on it. A fortress is a place where people decide, every day, that the rules matter more than panic, that work matters more than speeches, and that the person beside him or her is now part of the structure, whether anyone planned for that or not. The cameras are gone. The mockery is gone. The money is gone too, buried in steel and wells and solar glass, and the west seam that still bears a fresh patch from where the truck tried to break it. What is left is harder than money and less glamorous than every clip that used to run with my face on it. What is left is this: a lit yard in the desert, 112 living people inside the wall, armed watch on the towers, children sleeping in classroom bunks, food growing under plastic, water moving through pipe, and a gate that opens only when the place can survive it. I turn from the wall when the radio at my shoulder clicks again. East Tower to control. All quiet. I answer without looking back out. Copy. All quiet. Then I head downstairs, cross the yard, and go back to work.